All right, hi dudes. Welcome to this very glamorous shot of two Explorer windows here on my Windows 10 machine. I wanted to show you guys real quick. I was about to upload or import rather some photos and video from a recent event that I worked on for my friends at Pimp My Pint. They do some stuff here in Rochester to help people get unlock their creativity through painting pint glasses and wine glasses and creating bottle openers and all sorts of crazy stuff for corporate events and private events at like local breweries and stuff like that. And so I'm going to import some photos and stuff, and I thought I would show you guys my file naming system. Now, my file system is something that I've developed over time while I've been working in the film industry, for a few years, a few years ago, for a few years. And this is a file system that is like foolproof for basically any multimedia project that I do. So before I even get started to import stuff, which is all up in here, let me see if I could find where the actual files are. I need to I need to remove stuff from my card. These are essentially all the files here, and I'll have these kind of plucked so that I can drag them over when I'm ready. And then on the right, I'm going to create essentially three folders. So for the most part, I like to work left to right. If I'm importing stuff, if I am moving files around, if I'm doing anything like that, I like to move things from left to right. So I'll pull up two windows here, left to right. This is only a small corner of my screen, but sometimes if I have multiple things going on, I'll put them in quadrants or, usually, but it's only usually like two screen, so it's totally cool. So the first thing I do is create three folders. So I start with the assets folder, which is going to house everything that I'm using to create projects, and then the project files folder. So that's going to consist of my Photoshop files, my Premiere file, my Illustrator files, whatever it is that I'm using for the particular project. And then I'm going to create a renders folder. That renders folder is basically going to have the output of anything. You can also name that output if that feels better for you. I like doing renders because it just sounds nicer. But render also falls below project files. So if I put output, for example, it's going to fall above project files unless you change it by date modified. And that's not typically the way you're going to look at it. Most of the time, people are looking at it sorted by name. So I like to do renders. And basically that's kind of the hack for me with any file system stuff that I do, is that I'm making sure that I'm naming things based on order of appearance. So whether it's by alphabetical, or if you did want to do output, for example, you can do 001 assets, 001 underscore assets, 002 underscore project files, 003 underscore output, right? You could do that as well. But I like this because it's just a little cleaner. So what I'm going to be doing here is, the assets, basically what I'm doing here is bringing in the assets for the project. So I'm going to be bringing in everything that I need for this. So for what I'm basically doing here is I've got raw photos. Sometimes I'll just have it raw. I'll just say raw. And sometimes I'll just put video or raw video, either way, right? So all the video clips are going to go there. Raw photos are going to go in the raw photos folder. And if you have other assets, if you have like Photoshop brushes or fonts particular to the project, or icons, anything that's very specific to the project, all of that stuff is going to live within the assets folder. And I recommend you create folders for all of the individual things that you create. And that'll make it easy for you to, kind of keep it all nice and organized together. So I'm actually going to go back and just select all of the photos for my project here, and select these and just drag them over into the raw photos file. And that'll take real quick because I got a nicely quickly computer here. That's going to copy over, and I'll just pull this over so you can actually see that it's copying. And there we go. We got all these. They're uploading to my Dropbox and all that stuff. And then I'm going to open the video folder, or I could just leave it open. I'm going to grab all of my video files and oh, no, I need to grab all of them. I hit Alt and not Shift, and drag those over into video. Those are going to take a little bit longer to transfer over, but that's no big deal. One of the things to also consider when you are doing any kind of file naming or project naming, which I think I will do a file naming thing in the future, or I could just show you an example of the file names that I have as I go forward. Typically, when it comes to like loose assets, I don't change the names of assets, but I will do a naming convention for the project files. In this case, I'm going to be using Premiere, and I'll be using Lightroom. I'm not going to be saving a Lightroom file, but I'll have a Premiere file. So I'll do a dummy Premiere file and show you how I name that, and then we'll wrap this up. And the naming convention is going to basically exist within my file naming structure, so it's easy to search for things when I need to. So I'm going to click into video, and it looks like everything is saved within the video here. That's all backing up to Dropbox as planned, which is great. So I did a project before for Pimp My Pint, which is not as organized as I usually do. So I'm going to grab just the project file and show you an example. So I'm going to place this into project files. And that's another reason I'm actually doing this video, is to show you that I need to fix this for myself. Like, this has been a tried and true format for me. And I think it's something that's going to be really, really good for you as well. So basically what I like to do is name projects based on a couple different factors. There's some things to consider here. So with your file naming structure, you can see up top here, you can see how much I've stressed. Yeah, you can see the whole thing. Okay. So up top here, I've got C-Note Media clients, Pimp My Pint 002, which means basically it's the second time I've worked with them. You can also use this as another identifier. So if like it was Pimp My Pint at Genesee Brewery, you can use Genesee Brewery there, or you can put the date there, things like that. When you're using the date, I actually recommend that you write the date again based on naming format. So if I were to use the date, I would do the year first, then I would do the month, and then I would do the day. And that way, that if you add more files, actually, let me do a couple of like dummy files. I can create a new, let's just create a couple folders, and we can show you an example with a few folders. So if I have a few files in a row and I want to have them, they're going to all be dated, but I want the dates so that they fall in order. Basically, you would name it this way. You would put the year, and then the month, and then the day. So we do, 2019 03 27, and then we do 2019 03 28, and then 2019 03 29. As long as you follow this format, you will forever make sure that the latest date will appear at the bottom or at the top, depending on how you sort it. So if I were to change this one to 2018 11/24, then it's going to fall above everything else because that is the earliest date. And if I were to change this one to 2031, 12/26, then that's going to go at the bottom. So, however you format it, it's going to fall in line no matter how you do it. And that's the same thing within file names as well. And when you're writing a file name, that is something to consider as you are, naming your files. So that's why I put 001, 002 as well, because it's not only visually easy to see 001 within a string of a file name, but it is also easy to know where your identifiers are within the file name. So something that I didn't do within this file name, which we're going to do now, is for the project, which for me it's C-Note Media. C-Note Media is the overall company that I'm representing. And the only reason I'm doing this is because I have a couple of different projects. I have Dopamine, I have C-Note Media, I have Super Myers-Briggs, stuff like that. So I use a 3-letter code identifier to identify the company that it's under. So for me, this is CNM, C-Note Media. And then, I can put clients there. So basically I'm following the file structure name as well. And the file structure is going to be based on, the company, the need, the client name, and then usually it'll say client or something like that. Client name, and then the unique identifier for the project. And then you can kind of drill in from there depending on particular needs. If you need to go by date, you can put that there as well. But either way, the name should reflect the file path, so that if you're going to be searching for it, so let's finish this out. We're going to do, so we could do PMP again as another three-letter code for the client name, and then 002, and save that out. So if for some reason we can't find our files, or we have a ton of files, but we know in our head that we can kind of recreate the file name if we need to, or if we want to search for it quickly, I can pull up my my start menu, and I can type in cnm underscore clients underscore pmp underscore 002, and I should be able to pull that up. I don't know if that actually works with the newer one. All right, so let's ignore that. Sometimes you can do that by searching for a particular file name, but that's the way I like to do it. So that certainly helps as well. So that's just kind of a nice unique identifier to help you differentiate between files. And then since this is 002, this is not version 2, by the way. So it's important for you to remember that. If it's easier for you to put a date there, then put a date there. But this is going to be the first version of this project, so it's 002.001, right? So again, that's, if it's easier for you to just put a date and then put 001, that's fine. You can totally do that as well. So that if I need to save new versions of this as I start working on it, and want to create duplicates, I can just copy paste it and then do 002. No problem. And the way that I look at it here also is that for me, the latest is always the latest. So the highest number is always the latest. So even if you go back to a previous version and you update it, resave it as the latest version. That for me helps me make sure that I always grab the latest version, even if it's like 3 months from now. And for some reason, I've identified that version 1 is actually the one that I used, then I should resave that as version 3 so that I know that that's the one I need to use, right? So that's essentially it. And I do the same thing for renders, right? Because whether it's project files and you know that the latest project file is the right project file, your render, you want to do the same thing. Typically, I will get rid of old renders, or I'll create a folder and say, like, I don't like using terms like new or old underneath the folder because it just gets kind of sloppy that way. So if you just use these version numbers, then you'll know which one is the latest, and you'll know where they kind of fall within the string as well. This way of using numbers also helps you to avoid using like underscore new, underscore final, underscore whatever, like adding all of these qualifier words that can sometimes get confusing. If you just stick with the numbers and make sure that the numerology is at the latest, the one that you want is the latest number. Even if for some reason you lose your project and you need to go back into the Premiere autosave, you take the autosave, copy it, paste it into the project file folder, paste it there, and then name that as the latest number. So that will be 003. You launch that and you start working from there, because that is your latest version, right? So for me, that is how I stay organized when I'm working with my file names, when I'm bringing in assets. And really, it's these 3 file names, these 3 folders are all you need at the beginning of a project. And then everything else lives within these folders: assets, project files, and renders. And this is something that took me years to figure out the best way to do this. But this is something that totally works for me. I'd say play with stuff within assets, play with whatever works within how your brain works. But I think the biggest thing, and what has saved me a lot of turmoil, is using these version numbers 1, 2, 3, and just going in order and making sure that you're saving the newest version. I only save as a new version if I am working on a previous version and need to update the version number, or I've made enough of a change to the latest version, that it requires kind of its own version. So if you're working with a client, for example, and you're not sure if they're going to like this one, and maybe the direction you're about to go is going to change it so much that you kind of want to show them both, right? So you would work on version 3, you kind of create your own internal checkpoint, you render out version 3, and then you start working on updates to version 3 and save that as version 4. So you have version 3 and 4 for them to review. They see the version numbers. on the assets, making sure that your renders also coincide with the version number. You want to make sure that lines up as well, so that when a client comes up to you and they say, I need version 3, this is the one that I want, then what you can do is either deliver them version 3, delete version 4, or you can go into version 3, update that, literally copy paste it and create version 5, and then go into the render as well, literally copy paste it, version 5, change it to version 5, review it, send it to the client, say, here, this is the final version. Thank you. I appreciate you. Hope to work with you again. And there you go, right? All nice and easily done. So hopefully that helped you out. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below or hit me up at Let's Go C-Note on all the social channels. You can go to cnote.media to check out my work. And, that's it for now. I also have a podcast called Dopamine for creative development, and mental health support as well for creatives and entrepreneurs. So that's it. Thank you for listening. I've been C-Note, and hope you guys take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll catch you on the next video. See ya.